Today I'm going to show you how to replace the old dipstick on a MK4 1.8t with the ECS Billet Dipstick. Keep in mind that I do have some of the engine covers removed, so this process will be slightly faster than if you don't. First up, you need your dipstick tube, O-ring, and dipstick from ECS, 10mm socket, ratchet, 2.5mm Allen, hammer, and a scrap piece of wood. Using the 10mm socket, unbolt the secondary air injection lines from the plate in front of the intake manifold. There's a nut on the left and right sides of the dipstick. I've only got one on the right, so just make sure you remove both. If you want to make some more room, you can disconnect the SAI lines near the side of the intake manifold. Just push the little clip in, pull the line straight back, and it pops right out. Now you can take the lines and kind of push them out of the way more than when they were connected. There are two 10mm bolts that hold this metal bracket to the front of the intake manifold, and it's also connected to the dipstick tube. So once you remove those bolts, it's not going to just come right out because there's that little bracket that slots into the dipstick tube. With the bolts out, hold onto the dipstick and then grab the metal bracket and pull it out from the dipstick. It's kind of a long tab, so you'll have to go farther than you think, but it should slide right out. Once you've separated the two, there shouldn't be any problems pulling the dipstick tube and dipstick off the engine. Now you want to take the supplied O-ring and install it into the new dipstick tube. I was able to just use my fingernail and kind of get it in there and seat it properly, and it'll seat the rest of the way when you install it onto the block itself. ECS recommends you remove this little mount before you install the dipstick tube. I was able to fit it on there, but you do have to adjust it when you install it, so you can either loosen it or take it off entirely. The small circle you see down there is where the dipstick tube mounts to, and you're going to seat it with the hammer and block of wood, so there's really no need to force it on there. Just put it on there, make sure it's kind of steady, make sure it's rotated correctly, and then you're good to go and seat it. At this point, grab your scrap piece of wood, your hammer, and just give it a light tap. It really doesn't take much, and you can tell that it's seated because if you go to pull up on it, it doesn't move. This was by far the toughest part of the installation for me because you have to position that little mounting bracket thing on the dipstick tube correctly so that it slots into that metal bracket that bolts to the intake manifold. But the metal dipstick tube doesn't have the same give that the plastic one does, so when you go to attach the metal bracket, slide that tab in, it doesn't want to go in. So my solution for that was to leave that little thing a little bit loose on the dipstick tube, just loose enough that I could kind of position it and move it around, wiggle it around a bit, because that metal bracket is bolted to the intake manifold and it's just holding the dipstick tube steady. It's not really integral to the function of it. So that was my solution. I was able to get it on there and it's holding steady and everything's fine. So it's not sliding around loosely on the tube and it won't move. Maybe we'll see over vibration when I drive the car in the summer again, but I think that that's the best way to go. If somebody else has done this and has a better solution, please comment because I'd love to know, and anybody watching this video, it would be great for them to know too. Once the dipstick tube is on and seated with the metal bracket, put your two 10mm back into the intake manifold, put your SAI lines back together. It's just a reverser removal. Then you can slide the new dipstick in and you're all set. Just one final note. I saw some people on forums, mostly Audi forums, asking if the ECS dipstick and the stock dipstick read the same amount. To me, they did. I looked at the stock one before I pulled it, then I looked at the ECS one, they seem the same amount. The ultimate test will be when I drain the oil, put more oil in, and I know I put the exact amount, we'll see where it reads on the ECS dipstick. If there's a discrepancy between what I put in and what the ECS dipstick is reading, I'll be sure to post a video and let you guys know. Otherwise, leave any questions or comments below. I answer everybody I can. Thanks for checking out this video, and don't forget to subscribe.